Hi everyone, Stepan here. In this middle game video I'm going to talk about the Greek gift sacrifice, one of the most important and most thematic sacrifices in all of chess, and a very important attacking pattern you need to know to be able to find quick attacking solutions during your own middle games. Now, the position is never going to be ideal, the position is never going to be as if it came from a textbook, but learning the patterns behind the Greek gift will help you find similar ideas in your own games. The Greek gift refers to sacrifices on h7 and on h2, when the one side sacrifices the bishop for the king's pawn, the king's rook pawn, and then goes on to create a menacing attack. The name Greek gift refers to the episode from the Trojan War. In the conflict between Troy and the Greeks, you are probably all familiar that the Greeks infiltrated Troy using the Trojan horse, which they gave to the Trojans as a gift and had soldiers hidden in it. So the Greek gift is something concealed, which isn't that obvious in the position and which you should look out for. Now the Greek gift is probably the wrong name, because in this example in chess the Greek gift sacrifice refers to the sacrifice on h7, and the Greek gift shouldn't be taken in the Iliad, and in chess it most often should, and not taking on h7 is just bad. Even though it most often loses, it's always wrong not to take the bishop, because you lose either way. So the Greek gift sacrifice. This position I've set up comes from the classical French, the Steinitz variation of the classical French, and this is the best way and the easiest way to show you how the sacrifice works. I'm not going to go into the opening, of course. If you want to look at the Steinitz French, I have covered the variation. You have it in a separate video. But after e4, e6, normal developing moves, Black can make a horrible mistake in this position after bishop to d3 of castling. There are other moves here, but if Black castles, then the Greek gift is ideal here. Now, what do you need for the Greek gift sacrifice? Firstly, you need the bishop, and this is probably the only thing you need to make the sacrifice work, because you can do that either with the knight and the queen, or you can do it with the rook and the queen, you can do it with the knight and the rook, and there are several setups. We are going to look at game examples. But the most thematic piece constellation which is used to create the Greek gift sacrifice are the knight on f3, the bishop on d3 or on c2, and the queen on d1. Most often the Greek gift is going to be supported by the c1 bishop, because it controls the key g5 square. Okay, and the Greek gift sacrifice is bishop takes h7. After bishop takes h7, if you don't take the bishop, if you play king to h8, then you're going to lose anyway, because the thing works anyway. So it's always correct to take the bishop, because sometimes you can survive. In this exact position you can't, but sometimes players are going to be wrong, and the Greek gift is so tempting that very often in your own games you are going to see possibilities for it where it doesn't work, and you are going to have your opponent's plate when it doesn't work. I myself have spent 45 minutes in one game trying to make the Greek gift work. You can find that game. It's against Krsto Kovacevic, played last summer, so you can find it in the Road to GM series. And okay, let's continue. So king takes h7. The point of the sacrifice is that you have knight to g5 check, checking the king and threatening to enter the position with your queen for a deadly checkmate. Key is to have this knight defended, of course, otherwise the queen could take, and then Black gets to choose. Now, most often during games, Black is going to play the best move. The best move is king to g6, and sometimes this could save your position. Let's go over the horrible blunders first. If the king goes to h8, then of course queen to h5 check and checkmate. If after knight to g5 the king goes to g8, then once again just queen to h5 and that's it. You don't have any other moves, you have to take the knight, because if you try f6, then it's still checkmate, because the knight is controlling these two squares. If you try moving your rook, then queen check and queen checkmate. You can't do anything. And the best move is to give up your queen, so this doesn't work. After knight to g5, therefore, the king cannot go back. You have one option, and that's to take the knight immediately, which might be the best way to play, just playing a queen down, because now you don't allow your opponent to checkmate you. But after knight to g5, the most challenging way is king to g6. And this is what you have to learn to employ the Greek gift properly. The most common way for the defending side to defend from the Greek gift is to play king h6, king to g6 and f5, or conversely king to g3 and f4. And this gives black best chances, and this is the only way to defend. Now, to continue this attack, you have two options as white, and depending on the position, one of the two is going to be better and more effective. One option is to play h4, just not allowing the king to escape and getting another attacker into play, or you can play queen to g4. This is another way to play. Now, after h4, in this example from the French defense, it's quite straightforward. Black only has one move, and that's the move f5. Otherwise, the move h5 is going to be devastating, winning the queen or checkmating, because the king is restrained from these two squares. If the king goes to h6, then knight takes e6 wins the queen. So f5 is the best attempt, but now h5 check anyway, and the king still has to go to h6, and you play knight takes e6, winning the queen and winning the game. So this is the most thematic way the Greek gift works. After knight g5, h4, f5, h5 check is the key move, king to h6, and now you get to take here. There are no other moves for black. After king to g6, queen to g4, which also sometimes works, black's best defense is once again f5. You play queen to g3, threatening all sorts of discoveries and winning the queen in the process, so black can play queen to e7, trying to save the position, and this is considered the best defense. Even though it's completely losing, this is the best defense. And now white continues with h4, king to h6, because now this check isn't that annoying, it isn't winning the queen, and the king can go back to h7, bishop to f4, trying to get your other pieces into play and to castle, and now the Greek gift has actually become a longer attack. You're not checkmating or winning the queen in two moves. Black should continue with knight to c6, castle queenside, removing some of the pieces from the board, and now knight to f6 is considered the best defense. h5, knight to e4, knight takes e4, checking the king and winning a piece, king h7, knight to g5 check, and etc, etc. This position is just winning for black, and you are going to win long term. So let's go over the best defense once again. After knight to g5, king to g6, if white continues with queen to g4, which is often going to be the way to play, because sometimes you are not going to have your h-pawn, sometimes the position is going to be different, be prepared for f5, which is the best defense. Queen g3, queen to e7, black has to get away from this sacrifice, h4, king h6, bishop f4, knight c6, castles. And this is the long-term plan for the Greek gift, because this king is going to get checkmated, or black is going to lose a lot of material. But very often your position is going to be better, and you are going to be able to play h4 immediately, which wins on the spot, because after f5, h5 wins the queen, king h6, knight e6 check, winning the queen. The best move is king to h7, and now knight takes d8. You can see that black stands no chance. So this is the Greek gift. Let's go over the position once again. So the requirements you need is the defended or blocked for black g5 square to support your knight. You need the absence of the f6 knight, so the French defense is a perfect example, because the move e5 in many variations of the French defense removes the knight from f6, so this could work in the Tarrasch, in the advance, in the classical, in the whatever. It could work in almost every French variation. You need to have this knight removed, because otherwise bishop takes h7, knight takes h7. And the three most common pieces you do the sacrifice with are knight, queen, and bishop. Those three pieces, when set up like this, in this deadly triangle, support the Greek gift. Now let's look at some examples. The first example game I wanted to show you comes from 1985, and it was played between Ddarovich and Anthony Miles. Anthony Miles had the black pieces, and now you can see that since this is from a real game, it's not the classical French setup from a textbook, you have to find the Greek gift sacrifice slightly different. This actually comes from the Spassky system in the Queen's Indian. White opened up with the English, but they transposed. So the Greek gift can arise from many openings. Now let's look at the requirements for the sacrifice. The knight isn't here, so the sacrifice works. That is the first thing. But notice that the knight isn't on f6, so it's not really bishop takes, king takes, knight check, and getting the queen in, so it's slightly different. The Greek gift is sacrificing the bishop on h7, and most lower rated players often miss this opportunity if they don't have the identical setup, like the knight on f6, queen on d8, or vice versa with the white pieces like this. So very often, if you don't have this identical setup with the knight on f6, you might miss this opportunity, and don't. You can also include your rook, you can include your other bishop, and your queen can still come to h5. So let's look at how Anthony Miles sacrificed. Bishop h2. Once again, you have to take. King takes h2. Queen h4 check. King to g1. And now it's not as simple because you don't have your knight on g4. Had the knight been placed on g4, then this would be checkmate. But now he continued with a marvelous move, bishop to f3, trying to remove this defender. And if you take, it's very scary because this is coming, so you can't really take. So he played knight to d2, trying to take the bishop with the knight. But now bishop takes g2. And still it's too scary. If you take here, then a deadly attack is coming. f3 was tried as the best defense. Rook to f6. Anyway, knight to c4, bishop to h3, and the deadly checkmate is coming. So you don't really need all of those pieces to sacrifice the Greek gift. Remember that if you are able to include two attackers into play after you have sacrificed your bishop, that might be enough. In this case, Tony Miles used his rook, his queen, and his other bishop. So bishop takes h2, king takes, queen h4, king g1, bishop f3, the key move, opening up lines. Remember patterns like this in the Queen's Indian setups and in openings where black has played b6 and fianchettoed. This will support the Greek gift this way. And I wanted to use this example because it's quite unusual for the Greek gift, and it's often missed. Sacrifices like these are often missed. The second example I wanted to show you comes from the game Alekhine Drewitt from 1923. And Alexander Alekhine, or Alekhine as he is also known, has the white pieces. Now this position is slightly more obvious. Once again, you don't have your knight on f3, but you have your rook on f3, which is able to support the sacrifice brilliantly. And 3 moves later, black resigned. Of course, black has no defenders around his king. So bishop takes h7, king takes h7, rook h3 check, king to g8, and now I hope you can see the final blow, bishop takes g7, and game over. There's nothing black can do. Let's just look at the sample variation if king takes bishop. If king takes bishop, queen check, the queen would have to lose itself. If the king goes back, then this is just checkmate. So there was nothing Drewitt could have done to save the position. Let's look at this once again. So once again, look at your attackers. This position might be too simple because you have 5 attackers which could come into play, 4 which could come immediately, 4 long range pieces. So this sacrifice is fairly simple. But the point I'm trying to make is don't be stuck in a box of thinking that you need your knight on f3 and the ideal setup. The Greek gift can work in many positions. The second example, the third example, I'm sorry, is a game in which it actually didn't work. So let's look at this. This is from Miguel Quinteros, Yasser Seirawan, played in Biel in 1985. And even though this setup seems almost perfect, let's look at what happened. In this game, Yasser Seirawan defended perfectly and actually won the game. Now, you have these 3 pieces. That's clear enough. The g5 square is undefended, so knight to g5 actually works. Now let's look at how Yasser Seirawan defended. He used the thematic defense we saw in the first example. Bishop h7 check. King takes. Knight g5, king g6. Okay. Queen to g4. H4 doesn't really work because you have castled already, so you don't have your rook on h1. And in most cases where you have castled, you are going to play queen g4, as we discussed. Another thing is that the queen is here on this square where the knight can take it with the discover check, but there was something else in the position. So f5, the only defense. Queen to g3, as we discussed, we looked at this exact move order. f4, this was played. Queen to h3, and now, well, your knight is hanging, but black can't really take it because the other knight can come into the game. Knight 7 to f6, the best defense. Knight d to e4, c d4, ef6, knight f6, knight f6, gf6, and where's your attack? Knight takes c6, bishop takes c6, queen takes c6, queen to e5. The Greek gift was defended against. Now let's look at how this happened once again. Knight to d5. Let's look at what the engine says. Now, the engines think that the sacrifice could work, and I've studied this game with the engine, but they don't agree that it's winning, and it should be slightly better for white, but black can defend. And this is what's going to happen in your games most often. So this example, Quinteros versus Seiravan, should be the key thing you study, and this is a realistic situation, and this will happen during a game. You will have the perfect piece constellation, you're going to think that the attack works, but black can defend. So let's look at the position with the engine. Bishop takes, king takes, knight g5, king to g6, queen to g4, a mistake, f5, a mistake, but they're both using their thematic patterns. So let's look at knight to g5, king to g6, queen to g4, and the engines don't really know whether this works. Look at this, +3, +1, +3, queen to g4, all zeros almost, f5, a mistake, and now white is supposed to be better after queen to g3, but still nothing happened. f4, the best move, queen to h3, the best move, knight 7 to f6, the best move, tempting white into sacrificing here, into taking the sacrifice here, knight d to e4, a mistake which cost him the sacrifice. And you can see that it can get quite complicated. After queen h3, knight 7 to f6 was a great defensive try, and white was winning, but knight d to e4 sort of ruined things for white. Had he played the best move, knight to f3, what would have happened? Let's say knight here, let's have the engine win the game. Takes here, taking with the bishop is too scary, and winning the queen is the best move. If you take with the bishop, then queen takes, the king has to run away, and knight check, king here, and I guess you can just win the other knight. Okay, so it could have worked. Queen to h3, knight 7 to f6, knight d to e4 was the unbelievable mistake, and this is what you have to be prepared for. In real games, the Greek gift isn't as simple as when somebody is showing to you how to checkmate on h7. It will most often come to this, even when the position is perfect, and it seems that you have all of your pieces ready for the attack, black has some defenses. So let's go over that once more, just so that we could repeat the position. Bishop h7, king h7, knight g5, king g6, queen g4, f5, the main defenses that we looked at, f4, queen h3. Here Yasser Seiravan found the best move, which is unbelievable, knight 7 to f6, and now one simple mistake, knight d to e4, which seems more active instead of knight to f3, and after knight d to e4, c takes d4, e takes f6, knight takes f6, knight takes f6, g takes, knight takes, all zeros, black defended and went on to win the game. Now, this position can be extremely complex, and my advice to you would be, study the openings which you play and try to find possibilities for a sacrifice like this, and you are going to see that in your play, and you are going to know whether you play the opening in which this can happen. If you play e4, then you definitely have chances to do that. Apparently you have chances if you play d4 as well, because this came from the Bogo Indian defense, so it can happen for many openings. My advice to you would be to try setting up practice positions on the board in which you think the Greek gift might work. Just set up the pieces the way you want to, it doesn't really matter. Try to make up a position and try to checkmate or win the queen with the Greek gift sacrifice. And do that with the openings you play. Set up a position from the opening you play. Play against yourself. Try to find a position like this in which you think it might work. And here Yasser Seiravan survived, so it's not always as simple. And to finish off with, I'm going to show you the game Spassky Geller, in which Boris Spassky sacrificed brilliantly. So this was a miniature, and this came from Ddarovich Lopez. I'm going to show you the whole game so that you can see how the Greek gift can happen from Ddarovich Lopez as well. So I'm not going to go into the opening too much, the classical closed Ddarovich Lopez. These moves have been played a million times, and this is the Keras defense, which is slightly rare but very often played in Soviet Russia on the highest level. D4, opening up the center. Here, here, here. Normal Roy Lopez moves. More normal would have been for white to develop his knight to g3. e4, cd4, knight a5, bishop to c2. Okay, we have the bishop here, c5, knight g4, bishop takes g4, h takes g4, c takes d4, g5. And now that the bishop has moved, after e5, bishop to f8, now you have the makings of the Greek gift sacrifice. What do we need? We need the bishop. The bishop is here. There is no defender on f6. We need the knight, but the knight can't come into g5. The thing is that after the bishop takes, this pawn can move with check. So that's another thing to bear in mind. And the queen is set up here, getting ready to come into play on h5 or on g4. So what is Spassky sacrificed here? Bishop takes h7, king takes h7, and now the idea to free up the square, g6 check, king to g8, taking the pawn is just suicide, knight to g5, f takes g6, and now queen to f3. And now what do you do with black? Yeah, a wonderful, this is probably my favorite example of the Greek gift because it was so peacefully played, and there was just nothing black could do. In this position, Geller gave up the queen. That's the best move. Queen takes g5 and just lost the position a queen down. However, after queen to f3, if he tries to defend with, let's say, d takes e5, let's just give him a move, then queen to f7 check, king to h8, and rook to e4. There's nothing you can do. Once again, you have to give up your queen to survive the attack for a few more moves, but you can't really, because once rook to h4 comes, you're going to be checkmated. So yeah, this is my favorite. So after e5, another pawn sacrifice, semi-pawn sacrifice, he freed up the diagonal, and Efim Geller just, he probably didn't know it was coming. I'm not sure. Yeah, there's nothing he can do here. e5 is a great move. He played bishop to f8, which is not a very good try. He could have tried this, but yeah, still the position is much better for Spassky. Okay, I hope you like this video on the Greek gift. Let me know what you think. I would advise you to study games of your own and try to find whether you had an opportunity to sacrifice on h7, and that I would advise you not to rush in your own tournament games and sacrifice for nothing, because you can lose games. And also don't repeat my mistake of using 45 minutes to try to make a sacrifice like this work when it didn't work. So play this only if you're sure, and don't waste too much time during the game trying to make it work. Thanks very much. I hope you liked it, and stay tuned for more chess. See you later. Bye bye.